Variation is good, part two. If you know, a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, maybe even players, believe that following a program has to be rigid in the sense that every exercise you do needs to be repeated every single week and it needs to be repeated for a long time to be able to see any noticeable progress. However, that is not the case. Maybe if you're a true beginner trying to get stronger in the gym, doing the bench press or the squat or the deadlift just every single day and spamming it for like your first year or 2 years of training might work. And it probably most definitely did work. And it probably did work for me as well. However, if you're coaching athletes that are well trained, have a good history of training, or if you are an athlete that has a good history of training and you want to improve, you've probably noticed that a lot of your lifts have stagnated in your training and that these kind of rigid programs don't work as great anymore. This is where variation comes in. It's actually something that was coined by Louis Simmons, which I think is a really good thing to take in account when training, and that is the law of accommodation. And it's simply a law that states that doing the same stimulus over and over again, that same stimulus will become less effective and will be less of a signal for change in the body after a while. Which basically means that if you do the same exercise over and over, you're not pushing for change, but you're just pushing for accommodation. And that is the law of accommodation. So to start off, variation is then great to break these plateaus. What is variation? Well, in my first video, I covered what variation is, but that could simply be using something like a barbell bench press as an example, doing a conventional barbell bench press with the bars touching your chest, maybe to a pin press for the barbell. That is a variation that you can use. It's still the barbell bench press at the end of the day, but you use a different type of lift. That is what exercise variation is. Every single exercise, whether that is a squat or a deadlift or a bench press, has variations to it at different tempos, ranges of motions, or different constraints. How do we apply it? Well, you can rotate exercises every week or maybe every 2 weeks on your main lifts. For example, barbell back squat. The first week you might do a conventional barbell back squat. The second week you might do a squat off the pins. And the third week you might do a really low weight arse to grass squat. Your fourth week you might do a fast eccentric squat. In your fifth week you will do the same squat that you did in the first week again. The only thing you need to do is every time you do this new exercise, you have to kind of strategically target a new rep max or go for a max amount of weight that you can do on this exercise. That is essentially also why variation works so well. At the end of the day, if you had to max out every single week on your barbell bench press, you can imagine, obviously, the number won't just go up and up and up and up because you'd just be accommodating it. However, when you do a different exercise, but still the same concept, so the barbell bench press at its core, but you are variating, you give yourself the opportunity to still push to the max on each lift every single time. You can still improve on each lift, especially if you come back to that exact lift after 3 or 4 weeks. Essentially, these lifts allow you to push harder every single week without really having a lot of change and without destroying yourself at the end of the day. Another key thing I found with my clients and my athletes that I work with is that it drives a lot of intent and it keeps athletes, especially younger ones, way more engaged. At the end of the day, your athletes get bored. It's what athletes do. If you're an athlete yourself, you've noticed you get bored. That's why these programs are hard to stick to. You're not more disciplined and you're not necessarily a better athlete for being able to stick to these. As a coach, I think you need to find ways for athletes to stay engaged, and this is one of those ways. And at the end of the day, you're not taking progress away from your athletes. Instead, you might even be adding some help for them. Well, this could be really beneficial to your training if you apply it strategically. However, this could differ depending on what your training age might be and if it is that useful. But for me, I found this is one of the most useful stuff that has come into my programming.